前らの親玉にことづてを頼みたい。黒い剣士が来た。それだけでいい。
黒い剣士だと。
そうだ。
The BFS, Blade of Fearsome Size. One of the most badass character tropes ever made, definitely informing every D&D character I've ever sought to create, and sometimes even my personal life choices. The BFS character has it all. Cool looks, a giant blade that's as long as they are tall, and typically a pretty wicked backstory that makes their surreal design more human and relatable. I want to spend the duration of this video discussing characters that brandish a BFS. Why? Because they're awesome, and I like them, and it's my channel, so I get to choose the video topic. In order to make this video informative as well as entertaining, I'm going to briefly discuss the history of large swords before diving in to analyze some examples of characters fitting this trope. When it comes to big swords, there are quite a lot of classifications across the world. Most oversized swords were used as anti-cavalry weapons, meant to knock opponents off their horses or injure or kill the horse for the same result. As such, there are also a handful of figures who were known for wielding unwieldy blades such as these. Sasuke Kojiro, the legendary swordsman who wielded Monohoshizao, a 90cm or 2 foot and 9-inch straight-edge nodachi. Though he is noted as one of Japan's most famous samurai, I can't seem to find any certainty regarding his track record in dueling before his battle with Miyamoto Musashi. In fact, I can't find anything about Kojiro that doesn't almost wholly focus on their duel. Miyamoto Musashi, the famous ronin who defeated Sasuke Kojiro with a large blade carved out of a wooden oar. The Bakken blade he used in this battle was 110 centimeters, or 3 foot and 6 inches. He killed Kojiro with it by counterattacking his enemy's first strike, breaking his rib cage, which punctured his lung and killed him. William Wallace, a Scottish knight who allegedly fought with two-handed weapons, with that idea being cemented in the Wallace sword, a famous monument for his achievements as a commander. He likely never did fight with one, but William is almost never depicted without a claymore. Pierre Gerlof-Stonia, a Frisian rebel leader who stood at 7 feet tall and used a blade of equal length. Once a peaceful farmer, Pierre took up the blade after his wife had been killed and his farm had been destroyed by the Black Band, a mercenary group that served the French at the time. He then became an esteemed pirate where he led a crew that captured 28 ships. Now, we move from historical fiction to fiction. As we look at each character known for wielding the unwieldable, we'll find they carry their blade for one of 3 reasons. A symbol of power, because it looks cool, or because it acts as a storytelling device that is intertwined with its wielder. I'll mark which characters are which as we discuss them. Oftentimes, we'll also find that the blade has a unique backstory and might have ties to the gods of its world's given mythos, or magical forgery. I've lined up 15 different BFS from anime and video games, and we're going to look at each blade of fearsome size and their respective characters. From the wildly popular manga Berserk, Guts' Dragon Slayer is THE blade of fearsome size. Which is strange because it's far too big to be called a sword. But the most interesting part about this raw heap of iron is how it is utilized as a storytelling tool. As Guts' story unfolds, it becomes quite apparent that his blade is his identity, and its size grows the more burdensome his life becomes. It's also said frequently that the Dragon Slayer symbolizes the main message of Berserk, that being to persevere even in the deepest darkness. It has since captured the hearts of many, and Guts and his iconic weapon are echoed a lot throughout this list, and for good reason. The Buster Sword from Final Fantasy VII is another iconic BFS, making a lot of ripples in pop culture and even on the home front within the Final Fantasy series. Initially, this blade was supposed to have an appearance closer to the Orbakken that Miyamoto Musashi historically used. Over time, it became large and in charge, and the blade was kept flat to retain a Western look. Now, you might have noticed, I haven't mentioned this sword's owner yet. That's because in the lore of Final Fantasy VII, there are 3. While Cloud Strife is the first wielder we've seen, the blade was also wielded by Zack Fair and Angeal Hewley before him. This is shown to players in Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII, where we learn that the Buster Sword was commissioned to be forged by Angeal's father after he had been accepted into Soldier, an elite military program. It can be argued that Zack Fair easily has the deepest connection with the weapon, Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII is a game that allows us to dive into his story and find out how it came to be that he held such a pivotal role in the original game with such little screen time. Zack regards the Buster Sword with great respect after receiving it from his mentor Angeal on his deathbed. However, he's not estranged from the idea of using it in combat as Angeal was.
Use brings about wear, tear, and rust. And that's a real waste.
You're serious, aren't you?
Yeah. I can be pretty cheap.
Yeah, no kidding.
Up until this point in the game, Zack had been a soldier second class, with spiky but tidy hair, fighting with a standard issue soldier blade and wearing a dark blue uniform. The moment he's passed the Buster Sword signifies his loss of innocence. Not only does the weight of his new weapon mirror his burden, but after being promoted to soldier first class, he wears an all-black uniform with a more wild haircut and a brand new scar. His whole appearance reflects his loss and the darkness of the world he has opened his eyes to. Unfortunately, even in the remake and rebirth, the Buster Sword seems to only be a replaceable tool for Cloud in gameplay as much as it is in cutscenes. This could be chalked up to his Mako sickness affecting his memories, emotions, and character, since we see it resolved after Cloud has overcome these things. While Cloud deep down understands the significance of his trademark weapon, the nature of his story causes him to use it for function and not out of respect. In the film sequel to Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, we see Cloud wielding a new blade, or should I say blades. The fusion swords are a group of 6 swords that can be fought with individually or assembled to one large sword that shares a similar likeness to the Buster Sword. In the film, the Buster Sword stands as a symbol of Zack, buried where he passed on the sword to Cloud in the ending scenes of Crisis Core. Unfortunately plagued by wear, tear, and rust.
I don't know you. What squad are you from? Check out that overgrown Zanbato.
Oh yeah? So you're saying I got a big one, huh? It's funny, to tell you the truth, I've been thinking this thing looked kinda big next to Rukia's blade.
Ichigo's Zangetsu from the hit anime Bleach is yet another fantastic example. When Ichigo first earns the ability to wield a Zanpakuto, his is unusually large right off the bat, boasting a broader and longer blade than a typical Zanpakuto. After he ascends his powers further, Zangetsu takes shape, becoming a curved, one-sided sword that resembles a giant kitchen knife more than anything else. Throughout the show, foes and friends alike might find themselves taken aback by the sheer size of Ichigo's blade, which takes on that appearance as a reflection of his spirit energy. It takes on other, more brutalistic forms throughout the show, but I'm only in the Urankar sneak entry arc. No spoilers, please. If the Dragon Slayer is Chris Hemsworth, Siegfried's Requiem from the Soulcalibur series is Liam Hemsworth. Does that make sense? Siegfried is another iconic Claymore user that serves as the protagonist for the Soulcalibur series. His blade, Requiem, is another big hunk of metal with a nipple ring on the crossguard. Its design does differentiate with its irregularly shaped tip. Siegfried is also frequently seen wielding the Soul Edge as his alternate self, Nightmare. Though Nightmare's mantle had 2 more successors, Soulcalibur 6 rebooted the franchise and brought back Siegfried as the antagonist. In Soulcalibur lore, Soul Edge is a living weapon that can take on many shapes and forms, but its most iconic form is a giant, one-sided sword that is also shaped like a giant kitchen knife. Again, it changes appearance for Soulcalibur 4 and 5, but Soulcalibur 6 brought it back to its roots. Soul Edge was an ordinary sword when it was first created, but after being bathed in blood and hatred of every new victim it claimed, it became a demonic entity and developed its own soul named Inferno. Because of this, anyone who dares to touch the blade will have their mind taken over by the weapon's soul and be driven insane. An interesting turn of events, Riku's Keyblade in Kingdom Hearts 3, the Braveheart, is a sort of key equivalent to the big sword concept. Not to mention it shares its name with the 1995 biopic of William Wallace. Also considering Kingdom Hearts' position as a spin-off of Final Fantasy, it should be noted that the Braveheart is a recurring weapon in the series, most notably as the Warrior of Light from Final Fantasy I's main weapon. At first, a lot of fans giggled at this Keyblade, comparing its appearance to a car key. It is one of the 2 Keyblades in the entire series to not be based on a skeleton key, the other being Fenrir, a Keyblade based on Cloud Strife. The Braveheart is based on a pin tumbler lock key, and is wielded by Riku after parting ways with his prior weapon, the Way to Dawn, a Keyblade that reflected his character growth from jealous rival bad guy in the first Kingdom Hearts to Keyblade Master and Guardian of Light by Kingdom Hearts 3. While at first it might look bland compared to its predecessor, it is a necessary change for Riku's character, as his wielding it shows that he has truly overcome the obstacles of his past, and its basic color palette can be seen as a blank slate for what's to come.
It's time to settle the score. The King of Thieves versus the Gilded Hero.
In Kirigaya Kazuto's first visit to Alfheim Online and the hit anime Sword Art Online, he wields a large black sword reminiscent of the Dragon Slayer. Dubbed the Black Iron Greatsword, it is Kirito's weapon of choice when diving into a fairy VR MMORPG to save his online girlfriend who is virtually imprisoned there. It should also be noted that before this, in his time in Sword Art Online, the game, not the anime, Kirito developed a reputation for himself, earning the nickname the Black Swordsman. While generic enough, it should be noted that a certain first 3 volumes of Berserk were most likely the inspiration for this epithet. Unfortunately, in his later visits to Alfheim, Kirito decides he wants to go back to basics, but it was cool as hell while it lasted. In Final Fantasy X, Auron wields an oversized katana. He has a troubled past, being present for and unable to prevent the deaths of the fathers of Tidus and Yuna.
When Braska and Jecht died defeating Sin, I just couldn't accept it. I came back here, tried to avenge them, but she struck me down.
So, to keep his promise to both men, he watches over their children and pushes Tidus to grow stronger while guiding Yuna on her pilgrimage. He exists as an unsent, a soul who is not yet satisfied after death and remains to see their promises through.
This is my story, and you're not part of it.
Did you forget who you're talking to? I am the Lord of the Dead!
No wonder no one wants to die.
By existing as an unsent, he also risks becoming a fiend or monster, but he resists this and continues to travel onward with the party until he can rest peacefully. Again, it is no surprise that he would wield a large sword, considering the burden he must carry alone and the strength it takes to keep it moving. From the anime Rurouni Kenshin, Sagara Sanosuke's Zanbato is just a massive blade twice the height of its wielder on a stick. The Zanbato looks like a 2-edged sword, but it is actually a no-edged sword, and Sanosuke's main goal using it is to deal significant bludgeoning damage to his opponents.
Zanbato, what the heck is that thing?
It was the largest sword ever created long ago in order to slay the enemy, horse and all, in one swoop. But it's been said that nobody has ever fully mastered it due to its sheer size and weight.
Uniquely, Rurouni Kenshin uses this badass design as an opportunity to explain why it would never theoretically work. And so it is that the blade is cut in half by protagonist Himura Kenshi, and not used ever again. After this, Sanosuke begins fighting hand-to-hand. Another fun fact about the Zanbato is that despite its murky history, you can enter this as an item in the Scribblenauts games. It will also appear if you write it in as JRPG sword. Alright, here we go. The Kubikiri Bocho from Naruto is one of the weapons used by the 7 ninja swordsmen of the Mist, a collective of the 7 strongest blade-wielding shinobi in the series. Its name literally translates to decapitating carving knife. The sword can repair itself with the iron found in the blood of those it kills. It is most notably wielded by Zabuza Momochi, the first antagonist of the series. Zabuza's backstory is blood-stained and earned him the moniker Demon of the Hidden Mist. The sword symbolizes his brutal and merciless nature, reflecting his sweet nickname and his willingness to use overwhelming force. The sword's ability to regenerate further reinforces this belief in power through violence. Much like Zabuza himself, the blade represents the unyielding pursuit of strength at any cost, with little regard for the lives of others. However, as Zabuza's character arc unfolds, the sword also acts as a reminder of the emptiness of his violent path, highlighting his burdens and eventual recognition of his bond with Haku.
This swordsman's gonna be tough to beat.
Fighting Ike, eh, Snake? Ike is the leader of the Grail mercenaries. He may look too refined to be a fighter, but he has one heck of a sword arm.
Yeah, he's swinging that 2-handed sword around with only one hand. I don't even want to get near him.
That's the Holy Blade of Ragnell. It's an extremely powerful sword.
Ike's Ragnell blade from the Fire Emblem series was initially wielded by one of the goddess's legendary heroes, Altina. She used both the Ragnell and Alondite swords in her time, 2 sister blades that were imbued with blessings from the goddess. As fate would have it, In Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, Ike wields Ragnell, while the Black Knight, his father's killer, wields Alondite. The two swords are quite similar in shape, and their differences only become apparent when considering the material both blades are made from. Ragnell derives its name from an Arthurian legend of an enchanted woman who transforms from an ugly old lady to a pretty young lady after Sir Gawain marries her. Alondite derives its name from Arendite, the blade that Sir Lancelot wielded. Lancelot was known for being one of the Knights of the Round Table and betraying his king. Before killing Ike's father, the Black Knight offered him to wield the Ragnell, an offer that was declined and likely contributed to Ike's father's demise. As such, the two blades are a powerful narrative tool that help contribute to the severity of Ike's conflict with the Black Knight, acting as a physical manifestation of the vendetta that keeps them connected.
Dumb!
Wielding 4 anti-magic swords in a world where magic is everything, Asta from Black Clover boasts a kick-ass claymore as well. His blade of fearsome size, the Demon Slayer, allows the wielder to cut through magic with its edges and reflect magic with its flat side. Its crossguard can also lift any enchantments that opponents might have cast on themselves.
Hey, Asta. Nice counter.
The name and design are heavily inspired from Guts' trademark blade, as noted by creator Yuki Tabata. The sword's massive size and weight reflect Asta's own physical strength and determination, as he relies on pure grit and hard work rather than magic. The sword is also deeply tied to Asta's bond with the demon residing within his grimoire, representing both his struggle and potential for growth as he learns to harness his power.
I wish Ignis would get off my back.
He'd ease up if you could just get up in the morning.
Gladiolus from Final Fantasy XV is another badass that wields a blade of fearsome size. In fact, if he needs to get going faster, he might even just grab a pillar from the ground and use that instead. A majority of the great swords in Final Fantasy XV are rectangular in design, and sometimes feature 2 blades instead of 1. Noctis can wield great swords as well, but he can wield every weapon type in the game. Gladio's weapon choice is indicative of his position as the Shield of the King, Noctis' main bodyguard. It also helps that he is a childhood friend of Noct, which gives him the vigor to carry out his duties as best as he can. While the greatsword might be his weapon of choice because of his ripped physique, it also might be so that Gladio's weapon is a greatsword as a symbol of the responsibility he carries. Gladiolus' earned Genji blade is a product of him overcoming a trial and defeating a powerful swordsman to prove his worthiness as Shield of the King. The sword was wielded by his predecessor, who lost his fight against the same swordsman, but still managed to cut his arm off. Keiji Maeda from the Sengoku Basara series is based on the historical samurai Toshimasu Maeda. He wields a Nodachi, despite his historical counterpart most notably using a spear in battle. Keiji's oversized Nodachi and bold personality perfectly match the series' over-the-top, stylized approach to historical figures. His weapon is a reflection of his carefree, yet powerful demeanor, contrasting with the more disciplined or restrained warriors around him. While we're talking about characters from hack-and-slash action RPGs, let's talk about Impa's iteration in The Legend of Zelda: Hyrule Warriors. This is the first, and I think so far the only depiction of Impa to have a giant blade. The Zelda series is no stranger to oversized weapons, but this is one of the rare times where a character wields a blade of this size so quickly. Similar to Gladio, Impa's weapon choice is an echo of her position as Zelda's royal protector, though in this game specifically, Zelda might not need that level of protection. Inuyasha's iconic Tessaiga is massive in its fang form. So massive, it was added to a few Monster Hunter entries as a greatsword. It is forged from one of the fangs of his demon father, and as such, serves as a symbol of his connection with his father. Its craft also helps him tame his demonic lineage, and allows him to absorb the powers of demons he destroys with it. Tessaiga also acts as a protective force, designed to keep Inuyasha's full demon blood in check, preventing him from losing control and becoming a mindless, destructive beast. As Inuyasha masters the sword, it evolves with him, gaining new abilities and reflecting his growth as both a warrior and a person. Its role as both a weapon and a safeguard symbolizes Inuyasha's ongoing struggle to balance his human and demon sides, representing his inheritance and journey towards self-acceptance. I probably missed a lot of examples. I probably described some characters too much and some too little. If there's something you want to add, put it in writing under this video and keep the discussion going. The point is that when I grinded the main story in Final Fantasy XIV for over 100 hours, I did it for one reason: A lot of times, BFS characters can supply fans with wonderful stories to overcome their struggles, whether external or internal. Or they can serve as an outlet for rage, stress, or solace. Or they can be a hip fashion piece. Or a motivator to get stronger every day. Or they can just be cool and make guys like me talk about them for X amount of minutes. My name's Joe. I've talked. Thanks for watching.